you doing? I'm Steve at reallylearnguitar.com, and welcome to another video. Since we got such good reception of the how to properly solder video that I did on YouTube, I figured, well, we may as well do something with that skill that we've learned. So I've got some projects lined up that we're going to do, and I think it's a good idea for us to build some effects pedals. You know, these boutique pedals are really expensive, and there are some terrific kits out there where the engineers have really closely aligned the designs with those boutique pedals, so you can get a really good sounding pedal for much less than you could if you were going out looking for one of those boutique pedals. So I figured, well, the first one we'll build is a real simple one, and it's called a Tea Philter. I don't know how many Michael Schenker fans there are out there. He's the best example of this that I can think of. He has a particular quality about his guitar tone. It sounds like he's playing through a wah pedal that is locked in a single position where he's found the sweet spot. And it's really fattened up his tone, and it gives him a really unique sound. Well, the Tea Philter accomplishes that same thing without using a wah pedal. You don't have to keep looking for that sweet spot all the time. It's a simple pedal, on-off switch, stomp box, and one knob that you can just dial in that sweet spot and just leave it there. And the kit looks like this. It comes from modkitsdiy.com. It's a real simple kit. Let's take a look and see what comes in the kit. You see they have lots of pedals. They advertise them right in the kit itself. You get a real comprehensive set of instructions that anybody can follow for building this kit. Then everything comes inside the stomp box itself, all the parts. And the box comes painted, so you don't even have to mess around painting the box. So if we look and see what's inside there, we've got a bag, and all our parts are in the bag. So let's dump the parts out, see what we've got, and we'll also take a look at the tools we're going to need to do this project. So let's take a look. Okay, I've dumped out all the parts from the kit, and let's take a look and see what we've got. Of course, we've got our detailed instructions. We've got our stomp box with the cover and the screws that hold it on. It's all painted. They have included a spool of wire here because we're going to have to do some jumpering, and they provided us the wire to do that. Now let's take a look at the rest of the parts in detail, shall we? Okay, if we look at our parts in detail, we see that we've got one knob, a double pole, double throw foot switch, a 50 kilo ohm audio taper pot, a battery clip for use with a 9-volt battery, 1/4 inch mono output jack, a 1/4 inch stereo input jack, 2 terminal strips, 2 screws with nuts and washers, 1 transistor, a DC power jack so we can plug into an AC adapter or a wall wart, a 0.1 microfarad capacitor, there's 2 of these, a 0.47 thousandths microfarad capacitor, 22 microfarad polarized capacitor. And what I mean by polarized, it means it has to go in one way only. Then we've got a 680 picofarad capacitor, 5 1 meg ohm resistors, and 2 10 kilo ohm resistors. Okay, now that we've gone through the parts in detail, you'll notice when you look at the resistors that resistors don't have the values printed on them. Resistors are identified by different colored bands that are on the resistor. And you have to know how to read those to determine which resistor is which. So I've created this cheat sheet. Tells you how to identify resistors by the different colored bands. And you can get this on our website at reallylearnguitar.com in the Tech Tips section. So you can download this and use it for all your projects. Now that we've reviewed that we have all the parts that are supposed to be in the kit, let's take a look at the tools we're going to need to do this project. And the tool list is very simple. You need your basic wire cutters, wire stripper, solder, a soldering iron, two screwdrivers, a Phillips head and a regular slotted screwdriver, a pair of pliers, and if you are having trouble handling the box and working on it, they suggest you have a little hobby vise or something like that, but I don't think we're going to need that for this. So you can see the tools that everybody has are going to be required to do this project. You're not going to have to go out and buy anything special. Alright, well, let's get started and we'll go through the instructions, and we'll start with step one. Now, step one in the instructions wants us to take the box and mount all of the jacks, the pot, the foot switch, the DC power adapter, and the terminal strips inside the box. So everything will be there and fastened down securely, and it'll be easier for us to make all the connections between those components. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, now we've completed step one, and as you can see, we've mounted all of the jacks, terminal strips, the foot switch, the pot, and the DC power connector to the inside of the box like they wanted us to do. So now it's ready to start making the connections. Now the next step wants us to put 3 of the 1 meg ohm resistors and a jumper wire onto the first terminal strip. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, we can see now that I've mounted the resistors and the jumper wire to the appropriate terminals as specified in the directions. There's 3 resistors in there and that 1 jumper wire. So now we're going to move on to the next step, which should be to put some capacitors in. So let's take a look at the instructions. Okay, the instructions now want us to mount the 47 thousandths microfarad capacitor to the terminals and to the pot. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then we're going to mount the 680 picofarad capacitor to lug 2 of the pot and terminal 6 on the terminal strip. So we're going to do those 2 steps, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, now you can see that we've soldered our 2 capacitors in place as per the instructions. So now we're going to move on to the next step. The next step involves adding another one of the resistors, this time a 10K resistor, and we're also going to solder in the 22 microfarad capacitor that is polarized, and we have to make sure that it goes in the right way. So let's go ahead and solder those in and then take a look. Okay, we can see now that we've soldered in our 10K resistor and our capacitor. Now this capacitor is polarized, so it had to have the negative end towards lug number 9, and the negative end is where the arrows point. As you can see, there's an arrow on the side, and it points towards the negative end. So this is lug number 9. So we've got those 2 components in. So let's go ahead and look at the next step. Okay, now the next step we have to be careful doing because it involves soldering in the transistor. And if we get this little transistor too hot, it's going to be ruined. So we have to be really, really careful. There are 3 different solder lugs on this tiny transistor, so we have to make sure that we separate them enough so that we can actually get the soldering iron in there and not melt everything when we're doing it. So this is the one step in the pedal build where we've got to kind of be real careful. So let's take a look at putting that in, and then we'll take a look at it afterwards. Okay, now we've successfully put our transistor in, and the 3 little legs are soldered to lugs number 5, 6, and 7. And we were very careful not to get it too hot. So now we're going to move on to the next step, and we'll take a look at that. Alright, now we're going to be putting in the remaining resistors, and we're going to start to make some connections to the foot switch. So I'll go ahead and make those connections, and I'll show them to you when I get done. Okay, now we soldered in the 2.1 microfarad capacitors and the remaining 10K resistor in place per the instructions. Now let's take a look and see what we're going to do next. Okay, now we've got to wire in the two remaining resistors that we have left in the appropriate position, so let's go ahead and do that. Okay, we've soldered in our two remaining resistors to the foot switch, and that's all of the components. We actually have all of our fine components soldered in now. This is the extent of this project. Now everything that's left to do is just using that spool of wire that they gave us to connect all the jacks together and the power supply. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll wrap this thing up. Okay, now I've made all the point-to-point connections with the red wire that was provided. I've put the battery clip in. I've double-checked all the connections to make sure that we didn't leave anything unsoldered and that nothing was shorting out against anything else. And now we're going to go get a 9-volt battery and plug it in and see how it works. Okay, so here we got our Tea filter. It's all built, got the knob on, got it plugged in. Now the input side is the side with the DC input jack. Now when you're done using this, if you're using a 9-volt battery, you have to make sure you unplug the input side, or otherwise you'll drain the battery. Let's just kind of run it through a couple of sweeps. This is the regular, that's the plain old guitar sound, okay? That's the Tea filter on all the way to the left. And you can tell when I sweep it through, it's kind of like a wah pedal. So you can go from really bright to really muddy. And everywhere in between. So until you find that sweet spot that you like, you know, I mean, have at it. It's a cheap kit, it's easy to build, and that's a cheap addition to your pedal board, and you'll have a lot of fun doing it. So again, this is Steve, Really Learn Guitar. Thanks for joining me. We're going to do some more of these. I'm going to do a chorus pedal and some other things. Keep checking back, and thanks for being here, and I'll see you again soon.